What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Supper Suite at TIFF 2022 for an interview with the team behind Alice Darling. Huge congratulations on your movie. It is mighty powerful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I mean it. Mary, I'm coming your way first. I apologize in advance because you're going to do this a million times today, but just in case anyone out there does not know what this movie is about, can you give us a brief description?
Yes, absolutely. So Alice Darling is a film about a woman who seems to have a very ordered, polished life. She has great friends, she has a job, she has a handsome artist boyfriend. But when her friends invite her away for a week to cottage country, they suddenly start to see that she's behaving quite strangely and that she's under huge strain. And they begin to understand that she's in an emotionally abusive relationship. And it's about how they respond and what happens when her boyfriend turns up at the cottage.
All right, so digging into the process of getting this off the ground, I was reading that Katie and Lindsay really wanted to work with you for a while. And then this project came along and it finally got the green light and you finally moved forward with one. So what was it about this script and this timing that made it right for you?
Yes, that's right. Katie and Lindsay and I have been wanting to work together for a while. And when they sent me the script, I think I remember that I read a quote years ago and Sam Taylor Wood, the director, said was that Joe Wright, who's another British director, said to her that you should direct the movies that you feel you know a secret about, or the scripts that you feel you know a secret about. And I suppose there's many ways of interpreting that. But when I read the script for Alice Darling, I felt like I knew I could do something quite interesting with it. I felt I could draw out her psychology in quite an interesting way. Sometimes it's quite difficult to dramatize what's happening inside people. And a lot of what happens to Alice in the film is very internal. And I was really interested, how do you draw that out with sound, with image, and how do you work with someone on the performance of that? And so that's what made me want to do it.
I'm not going to forget that idea about a secret. I really like that. And I apologize for this question now because I feel like I'm asking you for the secret sauce right away. But what is the key to convey, or actually what's the key to knowing that you are conveying someone's internal struggle while you're on set, but also maintaining that beautiful subtlety that you managed to achieve in this film?
Oh my gosh, acting. Oh yeah. Well, these questions are always so hard because you're like, well, if I could put it into words,
that's
it would
why
be
I
easier.
apologized
No,
first.
not at all. I mean, look, I think this film was especially interesting going into it because for various reasons, not limited to the pandemic, I'd been kind of just working like project after project kind of without stopping. And then the pandemic, many things happened. And it was the first time that I was going to be on set again. And I realized like I'd kind of gotten into this pattern of kind of knowing how to act for Video Village and for the dailies. And like there are sort of tools in my bag of tricks that I can always reach for to make sure that I know everyone at Video Village is going to go like, I think we got it. And that becomes a little soul crushing eventually. And it was such a internal performance, as you say, like it was really challenging to trust that even if the dailies weren't sparkling, it would be a whole performance. Like that we were building a whole movie over time, which you're always doing, but it's very tempting to give in to that immediate pleasing thing of like, what do they think at the monitor? Like, mommy, am I good enough? And it is difficult to trust that, like, I know it feels like right now, the last couple of days, the couple of scenes that we've shot, like nothing's really been happening, but it will build to something because I know that what's happening inside me is the truth. And that is a really difficult thing to trust when you know, like, there's a couple of little things I could do that I know that I've done before that would make everybody go like, oh, okay, it's really coming through. And I think part of it was like the scope of the film gave us the ability to like rely on each other and trust that we were all on the same page because it was such an intimate film.
I have so many follow-up questions. My head is exploding right now. This is another.
I hate you.
That was so well
I
done.
hate you.
Wow.
It's really hard to talk about acting, and Anna just did it really, really, really well. So.
This is another really big question, but you talking about how kind of like the tools that you use have evolved over the years is making me think of this. What would you say is the biggest difference between your priorities when picking projects when you first started out compared to what you want now in terms of the stories you're telling or the type of on-set environment you want to work in?
I mean, I feel like the answer to that question is within the question. You know, it's obviously when you first start out, I was just so bowled over and grateful that anyone would hire me. You know, you are trying to keep the lights on at a certain point in your career. And like, I think that there's, when you're in that state for so long of like, can I pay my rent? And does anybody want to work with me? It can be several years before you catch up to the idea that like, that's not really the issue anymore, Anna. You know, you're allowed to like take a break and take stock. And yeah, I think that I was just sort of on a very exciting and in many ways fulfilling treadmill, but it was still like, I was just sort of putting one foot in front of the other. And, you know, various circumstances kind of led me to taking this break. And, you know, I remember watching The Assistant and this film Swallow and feeling like that was, you know, something so interesting. And like it had that gravitational pull where you really lean in when you're watching those movies. And then, you know, when I got this script, I just thought it was an amazing opportunity to try something different and sort of scary.
Not enough people talk about how good Swallow is.
Yeah.
I am obsessed with that movie and Haley Bennett's performance in it. Kaniehtiio, so with this movie, it is largely focused on Alice's evolution and how the friends are supporting her through it. But Tess experiences a pretty significant amount of growth as well. I don't want to spoil anything here, but just to tease what she goes through, can you maybe isolate what you think her greatest asset is as a friend, but then also what is her greatest weakness that she has to overcome so she could use that asset to help Alice?
Dang. I think her greatest asset is loyalty, extreme loyalty. And, you know, I think not just as Tess in the film, but also as Kaniehtiio, the actress, a lot of it was just sort of trying to be there and support Alice or Anna in the moment, you know? And what was the second part of the question?
What is her greatest weakness that she needs to be able to overcome in order to make the most of that asset?
Her stubbornness, I think I would say. I think it would be her stubbornness. Yeah. But I think the loyalty and the stubbornness kind of like coincide and like are married together, you know? But yeah.
That's why there's no clear answer to that
Yeah,
question.
exactly.
Charlie, for you, I know you did a good deal of research before jumping into this project. Can you isolate something that you found in that research that maybe we don't usually see on screen in a role like this that you wanted to make sure shine through more than anything?
Well, it's interesting. When you ask about research, I mean, I tried like a good little actor to do as much as I could, but the research I needed was what people who have perpetrated this kind of abuse have to say about it. And it's obviously very difficult for people to analyze their bad behavior because there's so much shame attached to it. I think this movie's like kind of drenched in shame, right? He's so ashamed and now that's infected all these other people's lives. So it's actually really hard to find work that delves into these people's shame and why they behave that way. There was a Canadian documentary a couple of years ago called A Better Man, which was about a woman who had been in an abusive relationship, a physically abusive relationship when she was much younger. And she met up with the perpetrator of that violence 20 years later to try to get him to talk about it. And I thought, oh, this is exactly what I want. And even after he had agreed to do it, she would take him right up to the point where he tried to explain these urges and this awful behavior, and he just couldn't confront it. So I really think there is a dearth of work done on that. And that's difficult because the only way that you're going to change people's behavior is to take them right up to the point where they're flooded with shame and then try to make them make different decisions.
Oh, I can't even imagine going into that headspace and exploring all that. On the bright side here with your scene partners, it just seems like you are like an A+ group with like peak level chemistry the entire time. We don't have Wunmi here, and I'm also like mighty obsessed with her and her work. She is a ray of light. For the three of you in particular, can you, this is a big question again, can you each tell me something about the other that you really appreciate as a scene partner where you wouldn't have been able to access something in your own character if it wasn't for how they helped you on set, including her?
Well, I mean, we were literally just joking about this, that I would be like fully just staring at Kaniehtiio in between takes and going like, I'm like obsessed with you.
Like, of
What?
course you are.
Like she just, I fully, and it all like, and I haven't,
What's not to be
and I
obsessed
haven't
with?
seen you in like since we made the movie, and then like we're over there, and I'm just like, yeah, it's all, I'm fully obsessed with this girl, and I do think that like she does have a very kind of Tess, like there is like a weird, it's like a regal, stubborn, like it's a presence, and I think like what was really powerful, you know, we were again just talking about this scene where she just brings me a sandwich, and because her character is so stubborn, just that much vulnerability just to bring me a sandwich is such a leap, and it was so powerful in that moment, like that. It's when two people are avoiding each other and kind of in denial about what's happening, you know, but you can just share like, okay, we'll eat half a grilled cheese sandwich together and that will be enough for now. That was like such a beautiful moment. We don't have to talk, but I'm here, you know? So like her bringing that little ounce of vulnerability was like very, very powerful, because as a performer and as a person, she's incredibly strong. So to see that was great.
Did you guys get
Don't
that on
look at
camera?
me. I don't. Honestly.
For me,
like,
like I said before, I just really knew what my role was as the actress and as Tess. And it was the same. And it was all to support my friend, to support Anna, to support Alice, to support Anna in the scenes, to be there, to give her whatever you needed, you know, and then as Tess, that's really basically the same thing that she was doing. She, you know, but again, was kind of blocked by her stubbornness and everything. But yeah, and then like working with Wunmi was like amazing. She's so bloody amazing. She was just, it was funny because it almost felt like it was like me and her and then you. And then like it would have the, like, because we would have these sort of like, is she okay? And then, you know, like, I don't know. It was like it was us trying to collectively care for this other person and collectively be there again as actresses for this person who's doing a really amazing job at such a difficult, crazy, layered role, you know? You killed it.
You're obsessed with me.
I mean,
oh my God. Why are you obsessed with me?
Okay, stop, cut. No.
I don't want to spoil anything, but I do want to ask you about like the shot composition and the blocking of the scene that you chose for the still for this film. Because before I even read the description, there is something about that frame that is incredibly striking and immediately pulled me in and had me circle the film and say, I need to cover this. So can you, without maybe spoiling anything, can you talk a little bit about that particular blocking strategy to make that kind of impact with an image like that?
That's a big scene, and as you say, it's to say much about it will reveal a lot. But I have to say that the blocking was a choice that Anna made, which was it's quite difficult to say this without talking about what the scene's about. But effectively, she wanted to be accessible to Wunmi, who plays Sophie. So she was turning her back on Charlie, playing Simon, and playing to Wunmi. So that became a very strong duo there. And then I asked Kaniehtiio to come around and act as kind of the bodyguard. And so she's facing off, kind of protecting Alice in that direction. So that's why the three of them are in that position in that moment.
It's just like a beautiful scene. I can't wait for, I love the idea of everyone's first exposure to the movie being that frame and then experiencing the story and realizing what that frame means. So it is something else. I want to come back to you now. Something I was reading in the press notes really kind of caught my eye. The idea of you being open to doing scenes two extremely different ways, where either it's like more heightened and frightening or something a little more subtle. So is there any particular scene that you went into and thought one way was going to be right, but then by experimenting with the other way, you figured out that was the better route to take?
One thing that I was really uncomfortable with from the start, that I spoke to Mary a lot about, was the idea that somebody who behaves like this has, like, they obviously have a bad side and a good side, but the idea that all the good stuff in his behavior is a lie and is just like a front for his real bad self. It was important to me that all of those things were true of him, right? Somebody who's prone to tantrums and rage and desperately controlling behavior is a very vulnerable and sensitive person, also in some ways that could be positive, right? So I guess that was always a fine line, wasn't it, that we were trying to do, which was, it wasn't like he switches to some real self or a fake self. It was more that his connections are a bit messed up. The way that he can leap between emotions makes sense to him, or he's kind of a hostage to that. So yeah, there was lots of that where Mary was like, give me this version or give me that version, and they all made sense. I hope.
I think to be honest, just to step in and just say, to Charlie's credit, he was extremely generous and available and open and offered us lots of iterations. Because also, I think when you're trying to nuance a relationship like this on screen and a character, you're not sure in the edit how that person will read. Because at points, even in the script development, people would pose the question of, is Simon's behavior at this point extreme enough? Do we need to see more? Do we need to see less? And I think I was aware that a little goes a long way, and we didn't want to do something very caricatured and broad, and therefore we needed the nuanced versions, we needed the subtle versions.
It's more scary. Like when there was the scene that we were just talking about with the still, and there was times where it was like you were doing so many different versions, and there was like really scary versions, and then there was these, I thought the subtler ones were terrifying, you know?
It's all about weakness with him, right? Like, it's all about weakness. So this whole relationship of control is like based upon all these unspoken things. And there's so many the way that Mary's put it together, there's so many, especially towards the end when you start to see all that crumble and you realize it was all just like paper thin, right? It was all just not easily, but it just falls away just like that, because what seemed to be strength is actually great weakness.
Just got the wrap-up sign. I have to wind down with you all soon, and it's crushing me right now. And I wanted to come your way because you are also an executive producer on this film, and I love seeing actors with a big platform get behind the lens and use that influence to get a movie out there that might not have a super huge audience without you. So when you're signing on for a project, what makes you determine for yourself, this project is better off if I'm serving as an executive producer, or any producerial capacity for that matter, in addition to being a star in the movie?
That's a tricky question to answer because I'm so bossy that it's difficult for me to not feel like I should be in charge of everything all the time, which has never gone wrong for me. I don't know. I feel like, that is a hard question to answer. I feel like, there have been things actually where I signed on as a producer, and there was a thing where I showed up and I was like, they don't need me to be doing anything. Like, everybody's actually done their job. That's wonderful. But I think the thing that made me want to be able to say that I was, a producer on a film or whatever, because I spent so many years going like, I really think I'm just trying to help, and I really think that this would help, and to just be kind of allowed to have that voice is incredibly valuable. So I think it's so rare that you show up and feel like, oh, okay, everybody's on top of everything, that it's almost like a little security blanket to feel like, okay, I have permission to have a voice here. I'm not just the annoying actress going, I think we should maybe think about this. I'm now the annoying producer doing that too.
It's important to use that kind of voice and that kind of weight to support films that matter, and it seems like you're very much doing that right now. Before I let you go, I need to ask about a directorial debut, which is like another massive step behind the lens. I was reading, I think it was something that you said where like it just felt right, like this all came together when it should. What exactly does that mean? Can you elaborate that?
No, it's really like I was saying to Mary last night, like I really am not into things about like, oh, the universe put it at the right time and it's meant to be, but this is one of those things that feels like unbelievably meant to be, because it like the project like looked like it was going to fall apart, and then suddenly I was like, and we were looking for another director, and I just got this upwelling of like, oh no, I would be horrified if anybody did it but me. Like, I wouldn't let anybody do it but me. It's like, I felt so certain that it was mine. And I'd never heard that thing about you should feel like you have a secret about it. And I absolutely feel like I have a secret about this script. And that's like lovely. And then there was like a weird thing where the screen, I know from Sam Taylor Wood, from Joe Wright.
Yeah, we're all stealing it from Joe Wright.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then there's like weird connections where I'd been like sort of corresponding with the screenwriter for while I was attached as an actress and a producer. But then once I came on as a director and like we actually met in person, he was like, I should probably tell you, like, we're from the same hometown. And like, I think my dad was like a substitute teacher at his boys' high school at one point. Like, it's just weird, meant to be stuff, even though I don't believe in that as a principle.
I mean, I kind of believe in it. It's meant to be. You all being here is meant to be. Thank you so much for your time and talking about your experience making Alice, darling. Congratulations again to everybody out there. Keep an eye out for this movie and stay tuned. We will have more from the Supper Suite at TIFF 2022.